Yeah. So that's basically it. All right. So I'll hand over to our first speaker, Jim Fong.
Hi, everyone. I'm here to talk about Swift. Yes, Swift. Specifically, I'm going to talk about why we shouldn't use Swift in production code. Yeah, I think Swift is not ready yet. So, to begin with, I'm going to talk about what is Swift. Uh, to developer, it's maybe very familiar with, but to non-developer, you to talk about why this Swift thing is not everyone talk about. So Swift is a new programming language for iOS and OS 10. It was announced in June in WWDC 2014, but it was actually under development for a little bit more than 4 years, and it's definitely accessible to the C and the Object-C language for Apple platforms. And it was designed for the existing Cocoa and the Cocoa Touch framework. So developers don't need to learn a new framework. It's only the language part is different. So one question is whether Swift is an Object-C without the C or not. Because this guy Greg Federici, he showed these slides and said Object-C has served us so well for 20 years, and what it would be like if we had Object-C without the baggage of the C. Ever since that moment, Swift is given ahead of the Object-C without the C. But I think that's a misunderstanding of what Craigie said, because language is not a simply addition or subtraction, because you cannot create a new language by combining two existing language. You can also not subtract one part of existing language to form a new language. And one important point is Swift is not compatible with neither Object-C or Node-C. So a C code or Object-C code, you need to do some special settings to make it available for Swift code. And another point is Swift largely expands the feature set of Object-C. So to a better frame, maybe this Chris Lerner, which is initial implementer or creator of Swift 4 years ago. He recently commented in one of the posts in the Apple development forums. He said a better frame would be Cocoa without the limitation of the C compatibilities. So just now I mentioned that there's a lot more features in Swift than Object-C. It includes this is a list of the things that are not available in Object-C and available in Swift. Swift takes in a lot of language features from modern language in the last few decades. For example, type safety and type inference. To both, you can return multiple values and the option types, and also the infamous operator overloading from C++, and the custom operator. And the first time we have generics for iOS developer, and even structs get much more powerful now. We can support method extensions, even protocols for structs, and of course a lot more than that. So before I dive into give you a reason why I think we shouldn't use Swift in production code, probably I want to say we should learn Swift as a iOS developer. Learning and writing the code for client project is totally different things. For learning, the reason I will give is first of all, say the new features. New features enable new possibilities. in terms of new design patterns, especially with generics, it's basically open another door for a large number of new design patterns can be used for iOS development. And another thing is a new programming paradigm. For example, the function programming. With closures and generics, it will be much easier to do functional programming in Swift than in Objective-C.
What's functional programming?
Sorry.
As in, what is functional programming?
Function programming is it's compared to, for example, objective-oriented programming. You consider everything is an entity, is an object. You model this whole world as an object. But function programming is you consider process as a function. You give some input, you have some output. And you use function to implement, for example, interaction of user, input some value, and you do a validation, and you trigger the networking part. Yeah, so it's a whole another talk to talk about function programming. It's not a 1 or 2 sentences can finish. So yeah. Another thing is Swift can help developers to avoid some common mistakes. For example, the type safety. It means you cannot assign int value to int to a variable with in string type. The compiler will complain about it when you do that. Another example is option types. So, for example, given option type, maybe it's a little bit what is optional. Optional is a concept to capture whether there's a value or not. So it either says there is a value and the value is xy, and or there is a no value. So for example, given an array of elements, and I want to query whether this array contains a particular element. In Objective-C, it will return an as not found, which is essentially the largest number in integer type. So programmers can, by mistake, to pass an as not found as an index to an array, to query this array. And the compiler will not complain because an as not found is the same type as an index for the array. So the compiler will pass, but it will lead to runtime error because there's no array has this. This is not a valid index for array. But in Swift, you will get optional, and you cannot pass optional as an index to array, and you are forced to check whether there's a value or not. So this is how optional can help developers to avoid some common mistakes. Another reason is why we should learn Swift is Apple's commitment. Objective-C served 20 years, and it's not going away anytime soon. But it also foolish to believe that Objective-C will hang around forever. It's not going to happen. Apple in future, Apple will use Swift to replace Objective-C. And Swift will last for at least next few decades for Apple's platform. So the Swift is a feature. So let's talk about why we shouldn't, with that being said, why we shouldn't use Swift now. Maybe I should explain what is production code I'm talking about. Production code, in my opinion, has two meanings. First of all, it's production quality code. It means it handles edge cases, errors effectively, and it has unit test covered, and the code is testable and the code is optimized for space and speed, and a lot more. Another thing is the code is actually in production. For us, it means in Apple Store, and if for the website means the every normal user need to access. So first reason why we shouldn't use Swift now is the learning curve for Swift is very steep. A lot of people assume that Swift is very easy to learn, but I can tell you that's wrong, because as I mentioned before, Swift expands the feature set of Objective-C. It contains a lot of modern features and a lot of concepts, the new concepts you need to understand, grasp, and to be as productive as Objective-C programmer, it's much harder. And Objective-C, a lot of people say Objective-C is difficult to learn, but in my opinion, Objective-C only has some weird syntax, mostly because the square bracket syntax for the message passing. But actually, it's very simple. The core concept of Objective-C is very minimal. It's just a very minimal addition to the C. And C itself is also minimal language. So steep learning curve means developer requires time and resource to learn this language and to be productive. So yeah, you cannot say that I took 1 week to learn Swift. Now I can write code for our client project. It's a very dangerous thing to do.
If you're a new developer, if you're a new graduate, how long will learning Objective-C take you? And how long does
For new graduate, I still recommend you learn Objective-C and Swift, not Swift only.
And Swift?
Yeah.
Both. So for example, the triple or training time.
Yes. And for now, maybe 1 year or 2 years later, it's different.
1 more year, 2 more years.
No, I mean in 1 or 2 years, maybe it will be different. You need to only learn Swift.
I think I have a remark on this one. So basically, like for the recommendation, it really depends on the graduate. If he like has experience, like for example, like C# or Scala, probably like he learns Swift more than C.
The reason I say you should learn Objective-C is not because it's easy to learn or it's hard to learn Swift. It's because all the whole Apple community talks in Objective-C. All the sample code you find is Objective-C. So you definitely need to understand Objective-C code. Yeah, that's the minimum requirement.
But do you think that it's actually pretty easy to read Objective-C code? You can read it and then it's actually quite easy to...
Yeah, it's Objective-C code is very verbose, so it's easy to read.
Right? Yeah.
But it's easy to read, but you need to understand what happened in this sentence. Okay, another reason is Swift still have having some performance issues. It was built to be faster than Objective-C, but in many cases actually slower.
What do you mean?
For example, an algorithm, a sort algorithm, in Swift it might be slower than in Objective-C.
Okay, but that's not what Apple said, right?
Yes.
Or they're lying.
So it might be because of betas, because during beta a lot of the compiler optimization is not enabled. So evidence of this is in the recent betas it's actually getting better, but I think it's still a place you need to keep eyes open if you want to consider using Swift.
So is there any situation that is faster than Objective-C?
Yes, there's someone do some benchmarks about this. It's actually getting faster. So another reason is the IDDs and the compiler debugger, all the toolchains are very buggy now. So you don't know whether you write the code wrongly or it's because the compiler bug. So it's very frustrating to write Swift code at this point. And the other day I encountered this source kit service terminate error. Basically, every few seconds, this error will pop up. So it's annoying enough. I don't want to write Swift code. Okay, number 4 is glowing panes. I think it happened for any instance because it's still during the beta. So a lot of new features are being added. For example, the access control was only added in beta 4, and this neo coalescing operator was added in beta 5. And some syntax are changed. For example, the half open range operator changed from 2 dot to dot 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 and the less equal sign. And the major one is the array shorthand syntax changed from type and the empty bracket to the type inside the bracket. Yeah. Another is some of the features are missing. For example, it doesn't support the object initializer that failed by returning null. For example, you want to initialize a URL with a string, and the string might not be a valid URL. So the URL, it's possible that the URL cannot be initialized successfully. So currently, the Swift cannot handle this nicely. You need to use some other initialized way to do that.
Hey, Junfeng, given that you stated the problem seems to be a lot of them beta related.
Yes.
Do you think with the actual Xcode being launched, a lot of them, I think it will be gone, right? I mean, surprising that Apple will something.
Even I don't think even after the 1.0 release, all the bugs will be fixed.
Okay.
You still need to wait for a few iterations. For example, 1.1, 1.2. So I would say at least wait for 6 months to a year to wait for Swift to stabilize. So another reason is the interoperability with Cocoa. This one is, I think, it's very hard to change because the Cocoa framework itself is written in Objective-C, and a lot of the design patterns and architectures are built based on the features of Objective-C. For example, a few Cocoa technologies depend on the dynamic nature of Objective-C. For example, the key value observing. So currently Swift is, most of the code is, by default, it's static. But to support this kind of Cocoa technology, you have some special keywords, for example, add object, objc, or add manage, or a new keyword introduced in the latest beta, dynamic. Use this kind of special keywords to turn the code into dynamic. So to me, it's like a hacks to let Swift to work with Cocoa, but it doesn't feel doesn't feel native. So let's say a lot of APIs are not native. There's too many introduced unwrapped optionals. If you look at APIs, a lot of question marks. It's the optional or exclamation marks. And another one is the method names looks super weird in Swift for some of the Dalek method. So here is the example. So there's a Dalek method. The function name is table view, but it returns a table view cell. And the first parameter of this function is table view itself. So you will see a double table view in the beginning. So in Objective-C, the real method name is table view cell for row at index path. But in Objective-C, you just get the table view. So this kind of API design is, as I said, is based on the Objective-C. So it's very hard to change to Swift.
Sorry, why didn't you think they would just call it table view cell?
Sorry.
Why do you think they named it this way?
This because this is a API from Cocoa framework. So it converts from Objective-C to Swift.
Okay, but it's what you're saying is a naming problem, right?
Yeah, it's naming problem.
My question is, wouldn't you think that it's pretty easy to name it correctly if you are Apple engineer working on this?
But Cocoa framework is a huge framework. You cannot add every single APIs.
Also, they work program to
Yeah.
translate everything.
Currently, it's convert automatically.
Oh,
Yeah, that's why. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. In conclusion, I think Swift is not ready for production code, and learning curve is steep, and the performance needs improvement. And currently, tooling also buggy, and the language itself is not stable yet. It's evolving rapidly, and it needs to be more consistent with Cocoa. Yeah.
Do you think now is a good time to start learning Swift?
Start.
Yes.
Yeah, that's I said previously. You need to start learning Swift.
Okay.
Yeah.
For new developer, you will recommend learning both.
For complete newbie, I would say you need to learn a little bit Objective-C to at least understand the code and focus on Swift.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Sorry, what version is Swift now?
Beta 6.
So like September 8, then it will be 1.
1.0. Okay, thank you.
And this one. Okay.
Yeah, any questions?
Questions, guys? Especially the iOS developers.